What is a coward? Pink Cloud Radio, transmission, everything together. What is a coward? There's so many definitions, really. But it comes down to what you really think a coward is. You know, because coward is like cowering, So, if you're cowering to something, it could mean, one, that you worship it, and you worship it to the point where you've created the pedestal as such that can hurt you the most. Because when you create a pedestal of somebody or something, you're making it easier to be scared of. Not even scared of, to be fearful of, I should say. Because cowering is really in fear. You don't cower in being scared. You don't cower when you're afraid. You cower when you're fearful of something. So what is a coward? Something of someone that is just cowering to things that they worship too much. And I don't know. In many ways, maybe we've all done this in a way. I have. But I don't know if I cowered more than I just saw that there was no point to see the existence of something there because of how I was being treated. I mean, if somebody else has created a prison to their environment, to what they live in, like if they're being abused by their families or by boyfriends, girlfriends, whatever, if they enjoy it, they love the fear then. They love the fear cage. And that's what, to me, when someone says you're such a coward, I always think about the fact that the person who says that is probably the one that's in that kind of relationship with their families or with their relationships that they have, with their marriage or whatever. They live in that. And they're telling me I'm a coward. Who's a coward? Who's a coward? That's what the question is. Who is a coward? Is a coward someone who doesn't go to fear, or is a coward someone who is strong enough to be on their own with it and just figure it out and say no to anybody who tries to disgruntle them and put them in a prison of their own fear? I mean, that's what this is. This is a fear cage. This comes within a country. This comes within the world. This comes within the people in power, and this comes within the people between us. Meaning that it's not only coming from the people above us, that have more power over us, but they got to that position because the people in power got to those positions because they had the ability to, just as much as we do. If they have the ability to get to that kind of level, so do we. So do we have the power to take it away from them, or them take it away from themselves. It could happen. A lot of people say that we can get wrecked from the inside, but the fact is, you can't really get wrecked from the inside if you're wrecking the outside so much. If you rake in all the dough from both sides, and if you create the dough and the weaponry for both sides, you're funding both the alchemy of the descent and the creation, which means that's what people say by, government is God. Well, yeah, government is God, all right. Especially they create and fund both sides of the picture. They're God, all right. But we let them be God because we trust the image of it. And whenever we find out that our government has lied or something, we just accept it and go, almost like the story of miracles or something. We just kind of accept it for what it is and say, oh, okay, well, God can't change that kind of thing. God let that happen. Like people saying God let 9/11 happen. Oh, God, then I don't want to be in the presence of that man. Or whatever it is. I would never want to be in the presence of somebody who allowed all these things that have tanked over the years to happen. I don't want to meet him. I'd rather go in hell. Because at least the devil doesn't just let things happen. He makes things happen. There's a big difference. When you let something happen, you ignore it. When you make something happen, you afford yourself the stability enough to put your 2 feet into it. To sink deeper into it. So what is a coward? A coward is someone who does it on their own, to most people. Because, of course, a coward isn't somebody who just lets something happen. We have to be responsible. We have to be reasonable, though, to people who don't stand up for themselves or anybody else. We have to be reasonable with that. We don't call them a coward. We call the opposite a coward. So that, the people that have the strength to do it on their own, they could take the sharp pins. But the ones who don't, they need the friendships. They need it. They need it all together, caressed in a little bucket. Because, they can't handle things on their own, so they need the stress relief of things built with them, with everybody else around them. They're cowardly about that, so they can't be called cowards. Too late. You're dead in your grave. You have no reason to suspiciously attack another person who has strength if you don't. People say, oh, that's the same thing with martyrdom or something. When it comes down to it, martyrs were always pinstriped with every single person around them, meaning they were attacked. You don't need to be shot or killed to be attacked, and they weren't. They were certainly attacked by a ton of people who agreed with them. Are you going to spend the time talking to people? No, you're not. So here you are mulling your mouth to somebody who's not afraid, and you call them a coward, the one who isn't afraid to do it. But you're reckless enough to just make the endangering species of this beast turn around on you. But they don't. You turn around on yourself by acting that way towards somebody who actually speaks their voice to you. And that's, to me, what a coward is. It's the opposite effect. It's just the same idea about bad being good and good being bad. Well, now, cowardly is not cowards. Cowardly is the opposite of cowards. Somebody who can actually speak out. You're a coward for saying all that. Yeah, I'm a coward for saying what is true around us. I'm such a coward that I can admit and say it out loud. I feel like such a coward that I can say it at everything that's happening in this world. I'm such a coward that I can deal with it. And that you can't, you're not a coward at all. You want to live in an illusion. So you're not a coward at all. You have so much strength to do that. And there is strength in that. I'm not saying there isn't. But damn well near to judge me on the opposite end. I'll take a tight strip and tie it around your neck, but it's already there. The lynch cord is already there. You've tied the rope around yourself. It's okay. You're not much of a coward. But to not deal with things directly and to tell me I'm a coward for doing so, you can do that for years, but it's not going to change the fear that you're living in. And that's what a lot of people think. Like, if they instigate, if they be sarcastic, if they get cynical with other people who are the opposite of them, they'll feel better about themselves. But it never works. It never makes them feel better about themselves. It just makes them feel better to hurt other people in that way. Because there's many ways to hurt people. It's not only physically. There's many ways. So what is a coward? Death to them all. Because there is no coward. There's only you. Clichés are too much encouraged to be nothing because they are the biggest ideas to change. They are. Clichés are too much encouragement. Oh no, when someone says you have too much love. It sounds like there's an utter result to claim something as too much. That's on one end. Like if you're too positive, oh, you're too positive, you're too encouraging, you have too much love. Yet no one says, you do too much bad right here. And I think you're doing too many bad actions. No one ever says that. If someone robs a liquor store or robs a bank, they don't go, he's too bad here. These actions are too bad. I think you're a too bad person in this whole thing. No. There's just a lock and a key for that. But if someone's too encouraging, oh, no, I can't take that. It's just like if I talk about the facts of our country, you're very grim, Marcello. No, I'm not. I'm just speaking the facts. In fact, it's very encouraging to uplift myself from the fairy tales. Not to say I don't need the fairy tales, because I create my own. But to say I'm going to not live in reality too, and bring imagination and reality and smash them together, you're going to have a discouraging life because I'm not going to change that. And you shouldn't feel discouraged just because I bring up the facts. If you don't want to know the facts, you don't have to know me. Clearly I'm not telling you to make you feel discouraged, but if you feel discouraged, that's what you feel. And no matter who tells you, you're always going to feel the same about it. And that's what clichés are, That's why people say, oh, that's something, that's a cliche, Exactly, because you don't want to do anything with it. You don't want to use that cliche anymore. The life got sucked out of it, but also, You sucked the life out of it right when you heard it, and you said, oh, that's a cliche. You just sucked the life out of what you could have used, because you don't want to use it. Sometimes people even say it just to ignore it. No, that's a cliche. Yeah, exactly, because you don't want to face it. Of course it's just a cliche to you, because it doesn't mean anything to you. You're not going to do that. That's a cliche to you. And that's something you're not going to do. And that's the encouraging thing about it. That it is encouraging. And you're not. Somebody who wants you for your every whim does not mean they necessarily love you at all. And that's the whole point. Like, being there for someone's every whim. I think that goes into the idea of almost like, a phase almost, in a lot of ways. Because like, oh, you're there for my every whim. Well, what's a whim? A whim is another idea of somebody's complete thriving of that absolute moment. But not the center point of it, Just the thrive, what they thrive for. It's like a Kaiser Permanente commercial. Thrive. Yeah, but my health problems aren't going to go away when I visit a doctor. They're going to be heightened to the point where there's more side effects than the actual problem that I have. So I might as well not take a doctor's note and take the medication, because what would be the point? Just to have more side effects. And that's the whole point of this, If somebody wants you for their every whim, it doesn't mean they love you to death. Oh, this person wants to make me happy all the time. But sometimes that's a bad thing to do, because it means that, yes, one person may not feel that way about it. There could be someone who does, though, who does appreciate that you're there for their every whim and stuff, but it doesn't necessarily mean they love you. It doesn't mean it's bad. Like right now, I'm not trying to say that people wanting you, you being there for somebody at their every whim doesn't mean it's a bad thing. It just means that it's a different thing to uphold. Because most people don't do that. Most people don't go, you know what, I'm going to be there for your every whim. No, they do things in their own incredulous manner, where they, want to do something and they make an idea and they give a response and they create a party for it. So if somebody's there for your whim, maybe that person actually cares that they're there for your whim. I mean, I'm sure that's the case. I don't think someone's going to be there for your whim just for their kicks. Like, I'm going to make this person happy for the whims that they have. But, I don't know if it means anything to them, but it means a lot to me. And that's not bad. One-sided feelings are never bad. It's just that I'm pretty sure you can figure out quickly if the other person doesn't have feelings. You don't even need them to tell you they don't. You don't even need them to describe what they feel for you or not feel for you. Because the difference isn't that, though. Like I just said, one-sided feelings are fine. But unless the other person doesn't think it's fine. Like, oh no, you shouldn't have that. Well, you can't define what I'm going to have in life. And that's the problem right there, is that a lot of people try to define it. I think that's what a whim is. Like trying to define what they want in life. That's what a phase is too in a lot of ways. What do I want in life? Let's see if this works. Wanted and unwanted confusion. Oh, this is a great one. Because when you have wanted and unwanted confusion, you have ideas that are built. And you have what is wanted confusion? Going out and going to an unknown place. That's wanted confusion for many people, which is fine. Let's go to a new place, let's see what it is like, and let's define the little objects that are there, Let's go to a different restaurant, let's do this, let's do that. And that creates the kind of relationship to you, is that you can go to a place that has tables, that has chairs, that has glass, that has walls, and it makes it easy. But what about unwanted confusion? What is that? Oh, that one's harder. Because unwanted confusion is what you have to participate in unwillingly. When you place yourself into confusion, do you want it willingly or do you not? Or, are your expectations in there? And I think a lot of people either put their expectations into the confusion they want. And that's the problem right there. I actually don't think that's a good thing. Because if your expectations start there, it means that you've already created expectations. You've already had those expectations before, and you've already been those expectations. It's like me going, you know what? I want somebody who runs like I do. No, I don't. I want somebody to accept that I run, though. That's a big difference, to accept that and see like, okay, Marcello really enjoys it. Or Marcello really enjoys writing or reading or, listening to music, collecting CDs when he has the opportunity to. The paranormal group, Pink Cloud Radio. These are things that his family, he loves his mom and he's close to her because he believes that being close to somebody that gave him birth and grew him up with his feelings, emotions, sensitivities is a good thing to have close to him because she continually helps him and continually shows that she's made mistakes too. And that, parents can be wrong. Parents or anybody in a family can be wrong and should be. Because the only way we're going to get better is if we actually say our family was wrong. We can't get into a better place. It's like saying, that person who's greedy is an okay guy, is an okay girl, because they're trying to help the world. There's nothing above greed that's going to help the world, though. So literally, no matter how much you give to donations, which take 80% and give 20%, isn't going to help. And it's like, that's what the unwanted and unwanted confusion is, really. It is that idea of like trying to stabilize something that can't be stable. That won't be stable to you. Because it won't be. But that's not the point, That's one of the main issues that I see is that when you put expectations on top of something, you're basically saying, hey, I want a foundation here. But you're not trying to build a foundation. You're already creating a foundation that has been preconceived by how you think. Instead of creating that foundation with the person you're with. It's like someone telling me, would you know what love is? No. But I'd love to experience it. With somebody who wants to experience it. Not just say what it is. That's why it doesn't matter if we get married or have kids or something like that. That doesn't matter. But if you point it at my face like we need to, then there's less inclination for me to want to be part of your life. Because I'm going to hear your story of expectations again and again. I just can't look in your eyes when you say that. Divine Object of Hate. I was thinking about Henry Rollins' song, Divine Object of Hate. And I kind of thought about, he probably went through this too, because he seems like a very positive guy. I don't completely agree with everything he says. Some of his comedy routines I didn't really like. But that's because I can see that he actually means some of them. And I don't agree with how he thinks. His mentality is bruised by how the media's been and how, society's been. But in many ways, most of what we hear on TV isn't the truth even. And if you experience something personally with somebody that you've met, that may be interested in something that is a popular culture thing, it doesn't mean that all of them are the same way. It just means that the media has developed a sort of scenery of what those kind of people are, when they really aren't like that at all. And I think that's where his judgment is really tired. But I can understand why. The Divine Object of Hatred song, Divine Object of Hate, is a good example. Because for the people who are negative, because I am positive, I bring out the hate in others who are negative. And that's the same thing that I saw in the song. Is that his positivity brought other people's negativity out. And I think that's what happens to a lot of people, is that, like I said before, the idea of people not understanding that somebody could be positive, that somebody could have too much love. But then labeling it too much already shows that you're being negative about it. Like, oh my God, how can you do that? Yesterday, one of my managers was saying, you want to be Don Juan, you want to have a lot of girls or something. I was like, no. It rhymes with Don Juan, but it's not Don Juan, it's only one. That's all. I don't want to be Don Juan. I want to make all of you laugh, all of you smile. That's a good thing. I don't think that makes me, something better than what I am or something worse. And I don't think it creates an image of me even. Even like what people say flirting is. Like, you could tell me, like, someone could tell me, hey, you've been flirting with that girl at work or something like that. But if I'm just flirting and nobody's flirting back, exactly. It's not flirting. I've been doing this for years. It's not flirting at all. It's only me being me and joking around and saying how beautiful everyone is. Yes, this guy's such a flirter right here. He's a Don Juan. No, only one. Not a Don Juan, only one. And that's what the divine object of hate is, in a lot of ways. It brings out the negativity from others. And I'm not saying that that's negativity. What happened at work or whatever, that's not negativity necessarily. It's joking around, it's seeing that. But at the same time, there are people who do that. And I'm sure Roland's experienced that too. You know, being positive with the whole thing. I mean, to be honest, the two kind of set skills that most people see is complying with something or rebelling against it. So either comply or fight. But there's other options. There's many options, and I think that's the one thing. Like when you create other options, when you create positivity, you're creating negativity in the flow of like, no, there has to be just war, you know. But the war, there's never been an actual war without subversion tactics. So there's never been an official kind of war where two sides actually fought each other and they were completely opposite of each other and they never had any influence from each other. I'm not talking about influence over the seas. I'm talking about influence, you know, in the pot. Because they both put their hands in each other's pot way before war started. So I think that's the influence that I see. Is that if we want to create a positive energy, that's a bad thing because people are used to the negative. That's what creates the wars that happen now in the past 100, 200 years. You know, the skills and firefight of what we have is just to be on both sides and put blows on each other. Because what could be better than that? Well, a lot of things. What could be worse? Well, maybe stepping away from that and starting to realize that if we need to instigate or have any kind of intervention, we only have it if it's necessary, not if we create it. Not to just have power over other people, not just have military bases in every country where there's a perpetual state of war that never ends, which we've always been in a state of war ever since we've had a military base in another country. The first one started it all, and the next ones made the fall. Completely possible. And I think that's what really happens, is that, oh, you're being positive with that kind of image, like anything you talk about. Like me talking about, you know, the corruption in a country or something. You know, a lot of people put the negative on that, like, oh, how could you believe that? That's just from you know, the TV or the YouTube video you saw. No, that's some actual facts, unsealed documents. And not even unsealed documents, from geoengineering with chemtrails, from the HARP weaponry that is actually officially documented, from the Northwoods documents, from the Bay of Pigs documents that came out. How much more do you need? You know, these facts are there. And all you do is say, no, they're from a YouTube video you saw. Go ahead, say that. But it's the divine object of hate that you have. So that means that you have a lot of hate in you. For what reason? Because you don't want things to change. You're so used to it. You know, you're crippling me. You're taking away all the fight with this illusion I have. Oh no, all these lies are helping me. No, they're not. If you have to defend it that much, they're not helping you. If all it does is bring hate out of you and negativity, it's not helping you at all. We got all our priorities straight, which is not true at all, of course. You know, when people say that, we got all our priorities straight. No, we don't. We don't have any priorities. In fact, we don't have priorities. Our priorities are to not be straight with it, or to not be straightforward with anything. You know, straight is not the word for it. I'm not talking about straight gender-wise, I'm talking about straight to the point. We don't do that. We get straight to the behind the scenes, you know, put our hand in each pot and fill the mother load of weaponry on both sides so that they attack each other and we get the money supply thrown right at us. Gold and silver in the banks, you know, not little dollar bills made of paper that we could build with trees. We can make with trees, you know. And to be honest, that goes into another idea. You know, these ideas of saying that we all got priorities straight. No, we don't. And it's mostly because you can't change stupidity without admitting it. Without admitting stupidity. And I'm not talking about saying you have to call it stupidity even. I think that's one of the main issues that I've seen, is that people try to not admit that they can change what they did. I mean, that's the main reason why people can't change their past, is because they don't want to admit the stupidity they did. but they didn't know. Whether or not it was something like personally from my past, where it was, for example, with Shane, one of my friends from before, he didn't want to admit the stupidity he'd been doing for years after after I'd stopped talking to him. There was a few years that passed by, and then I heard from him again, and he said he didn't want to talk about the last few years. Right there and then, you're proving why you're going to fall into the same things, because you're not admitting the stupidity you've done. But it doesn't need to be called stupidity. And I think that's one of the main issues. People automatically say, oh, it's stupidity because there's a glass frame in front of us of news articles, everything, of TV, of programs, of different things that tell us not to do this, but I've done it. So what? Those things aren't truthful anyway. Most of them are tactics to get a group holding and to get you by the throat, to lessen and comply. To basically use the two tactics that are always there, fighting and complying. But if you want to create something new, you have to fight away from those scenarios. Move away from those kind of scenarios and find a third option, find a fourth option, find a fifth option, find a different way to go. I'm not going to name them because you have to know them. For each individual, it's different. For me, the best way to do it is to say, you know what, don't be sad because you're not complying with your parents, or you have to fight, and don't fight with your parents. Don't fight with the people around you. Don't comply with them either. Because all you're doing is fighting to comply. You end up complying because you're helping them. Anyone who fights somebody who fights, you're helping them. You're helping to comply with them. You're helping to listen to them. I argue with the people that argue with me about my life. Yeah, you're helping them right there. You're agreeing with them. Even if you're disagreeing in the fight, you're agreeing with them. That's the problem. And I think that's the idea, that you can't change stupidity without admitting it. So you have to move away from those tactics that everybody else is using with you, and using with you in the whole frame of the social media and the media presence in front of us, and the social interaction, and everything else that's around the society and civilization. Just because you're not scared doesn't mean you don't care too. Like with me, I was asked many times before if I was scared. I didn't feel that scared, but I did feel scared for sure. I have felt scared before for sure. And more recently I have, but I didn't admit it. And that's not a bad thing. That's not saying that, oh, well, he's probably lying. But it's more that to admit I'm scared to somebody who doesn't care wouldn't count. So that's what I mean by just because you're not scared doesn't mean you don't care. And I think that's what it comes down to, is that automatically it's going to be an assumption of, well, you got to know what to do. That's the answer for everybody. Again, intimidation. Using the same tactics to fight and comply. You have to comply with this, Marcello. No, I don't. You have to admit that somebody else that is close to me as a family member or whatever is not me. Like I said, parents are wrong. Grandparents are wrong. Everybody's wrong in the family, and that's the only way I'm going to change and be a better person. It's not going to come from the people around me like that. And I'm not putting them down and saying I didn't learn anything from them and I disrespect them. They have to live their lives. But if they disrespect what I'm doing in my life, experience or otherwise, they're degrading the kind of relationship they could have with me. They're not degrading anything else around me. They're degrading themselves. So if somebody says something directly towards you that you know me, and they've said something about you, or to me about you, do you really think I would call you that? If you do, you should leave before. And you probably shouldn't trust me from the beginning if that's how you're going to take the assumption of my character. Throw it in the sky with that. That's the reputation you built. Oh, no, he believes what she believes because he's still around her. Nope. The idea comes pretty simple. If you love somebody, you don't agree with them. You just help them. You just help them. There you go. I gave myself up to the wrong guys. I was thinking about that one too many times. I gave myself up to the wrong guys one too many times. Girls, this is for you. Any girls out there who want to listen to this and believe it. That doesn't mean the word you put in there that doesn't make sense is wrong. Because literally you wouldn't have known that beforehand. And I think a lot of people like try to say, well, no, I could have known that. But that's the whole point. If you have to say it now and say, I gave myself up to too many wrong guys, I gave myself up to the wrong guys too many times, you're already showing that now you can admit they're wrong. But they weren't wrong when you were with them, were they? And that's the thing. They're not wrong. You just realized that you didn't want that. But you already created a definition of a kind of guy when you were getting in that relationship, even before it. Even before you got in a relationship with any of those wrong guys, you had an assumption of what a guy is. That's what you got wrong. You never got the guy wrong, you got the assumption of guys wrong. That's the problem. And that's the idea that you have to center on. Do you really want that kind of guy? You know, that's what a lot of people think. Like, they want the jealous type, they want the type that will fight for them. If the first thing on your mind is a fight, that's all you're going to do with the person. You know? That's all you're going to do. If you need somebody to protect you, if all you care about is security and assurances from somebody else, you're not going to get much out of your life. You're not going to get much out of the person. All you're going to get is more hounding, more aggressiveness. Because that's the one thing you're looking for. If you're looking for something, I mean, I understand aggressiveness, but if all you're looking for is aggressiveness, that's all you're going to get. And that's what I think that means, is like, that's the mentality. That's wrong there. How is it like to experience only love, not hate? How is it? Because when you experience love only, it's impossible to experience only love. Now, I'm not saying that you have to experience hate to know it, or experience love to know it, because you don't. I think personally that when you experience love, it's more how you act with others, and it's more how you define yourself with other people. What is your self-esteem? What is your idea? How do you want to be with somebody? And hate? Of course you experience it, but you don't need to be hateful to experience hate. But people define certain things too. It's like, if somebody gets upset, oh, they're hateful. No, they're not. If somebody gets upset, everybody gets upset in some ways, in some forms or another. Like right now with this Pink Cloud Radio, this is me on the verge of, blowing up. But that's right. Okay? It's not wrong to be upset. And I think too many people say, that's why I don't like the conditional treatment of children now, where you don't spank them, you don't do anything like that, no abuse in the home at all. But we've defined abuse to be the point of you can't even touch your child. Give them a hug. Like, at this point, you can't create a relationship with somebody because, oh no, you can't mistreat children, but they're going to mistreat everybody else. Once you let that go, you're letting everybody go on their own, and you're creating more damage and more damaged people, because you need to create an equal ladder of the kind of process they're going to live in. And I think that's what it means. The experience of it can come from anywhere. But if you don't experience it, you certainly can define it very easily. And I think that's what this question really means, is that can you experience this seriously without trying to just bend it to your will? What love is and what hate is. And, it's just like if you don't have the money, don't get it. If you don't have the heart, don't do it. Because this is why people say sacrifice and make it out to be something bad. That's what I've noticed. When I look back at, like, my grandma, for example, I'm not putting her down when I say this, but the years that she put into her husband after he had the stroke and everything else, she took care of him for many years. And to be honest, is it sacrifice? Well, that's how she wants to define it. But, is it sacrifice really? Or is it something you honestly felt in your heart? Because when you have somebody that gives you a branch that your tree can grow out, how is it a bad thing? How is it just now sacrifice? How is it only defined as one word? I don't think it is, but that's me personally. I haven't been put in the same situation, but I'm probably not put in any situation because I have that kind of testament. Because I have that kind of commitment and consistency. And it scares people. Oh no, this guy's consistent. That's not good. It means he remembers everything. No, it just means I'm able to not linger on things and to establish the kind of conditions that we should have together. You know, that we both can agree on. And not just coming from me, not just coming from what I've experienced before, not just defining you as someone I've seen before when you do something like them. Nothing. But once you decide to make that gap and say that this is this, then you're saying that there's no reason to have an ultimate say in a relationship and let the other person control it. It's okay. That's what I think a lot of people do. That's why people say, I sacrifice so much. I sacrifice so much. I hate that. That's the worst line I ever heard. I always think that's one of the worst lines you could ever say. I sacrifice so much for you. Then why'd you do it? Why would you do it if what you're going to do is hold it over me? Hey, I sacrificed so much for you. Oh, I feel so loved here. This person sacrificed so much for me, and that's all they're saying now. It's like a repeated record that repeats the same part over and over again. I sacrificed so much for you. I sacrificed so much for you. Then you should just leave. Fuck you. But that's the idea. If that's all you're going to do is hold it over somebody, it's gone. There's no reason to do something except if you do it for love. If you're doing it for hate, if you're doing it just to get some dead weight back, because you're not going to get the same experience that you got when you did it. That's why people say, I did so much sacrifice for you. And I think that's the idea, the mentality of it. I've done so much sacrifice for you. Sacrifice? Sacrifice is not... You're now basically disabling everything you felt to push it right on me and say, I want to feel it too. I want to experience what I put the experience on you. I can't do that. You're not my age. You're not completely reversing your age and going back to where I was, and I'm helping you get to there. Get to here where I am now. I can't do that. You've already gone through it. I think that's the problem. Most people are living through that kind of face of value that they don't know. And, if you feel used, you have to say so. Don't just bring it up in an argument or at the opportunity. It feels like the feeling of used is ignored a lot inside to defend actions of the heart. Though if you struggle with feeling used versus doing sacrifice and feeling good about choosing used, truth hurts, but the way a perspective feels will not change. So how your perspective feels about, being used and stuff like that, you've now created it. You've now created the biggest problem of all. By saying that, oh, this is how it's going to be. I feel used now because of how you're reacting to me. Really? So you don't know why I'm reacting this way? And I think that's one of the main sways in a relationship is that if you have felt used before, don't do it. It's the same reason for, if you don't have the money, don't get it. Well, apply that to everything else. If you don't want to do something because you're going to feel used when you do it, don't do it. But if you do it from the heart, you won't feel used. I never felt used. Any friendship I've had where my family members or my grandmother or anybody said anything about it, said, you're being used. I never felt that way. Well, I'm trying to get it in your head that you felt used. Well, you can't change my mentality. My mentality was there in the heart. It wasn't there in like, oh wait, I got to get something back in return. No, I don't. You need to get something back in return for me being myself. For me experiencing things with people you don't agree with. So what? It's like me telling you that, the family friends you've had before we were born, oh, well, let's see, what creates a relationship with them? Oh, because we went to their place all the time when we were young. So what? I might as well thank Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I might as well thank any of those things. Fuck them. I don't need them anymore. I got into other things. I don't need to pay attention to Ninja Turtles anymore. Or Power Rangers. Not to say I don't want to, but to say that I'm already creating a relationship and atmosphere with older things. With things I never heard of before. That's what I mean. So when you say that, you're doing something for sacrifice, but you don't feel good about it, you're not doing it for sacrifice. You're not doing it for your love. You're doing it because you don't want to say you feel used. I mean, what's the point? What's the point to be in a relationship, whether it's a family dynamic or anything? What's the use to be in that relationship if all you're going to say is, if all you're going to do is keep inside that you feel used? Because you obviously felt that before you said it. You didn't just feel it right when you said it. You felt it way before that. Way before that. You felt it when you helped that person. Not worth it to me, buddy. Not worth it to me. If you hold something against me, make sure to let me know. That's the truth. If you do hold something against me, just let me know. Just let me know, hey Marcello, I'm going to hold something against you. Oh, okay, thank you. Thank you for letting me know at least, So at least I know that you're holding it against me. I'm going to get out of here. I don't need anybody holding things against me. Not because, you can't deal with that. No, none of that stupid shit. Why hold something against me? Let me know. Why hold something against me in secret, in silence? If that's your mentality, if that's your attitude towards it, I gotta go. I can't deal with that. No, thank you. I'm not gonna deal with your insecurity. Your insecurity is your insecurity, but when you throw it in my face like I'm supposed to know better, when you didn't even know better to tell me that you were holding it against me, how am I supposed to know better? You did something even worse than me. You held it in. You held it in that you were going to hold something against me. So you could hold it against me right at that moment. Your disguise has dropped now. And you're not going to get any closer. Because you're creating a bad environment. You're like throwing toxic waste at me and saying, I love you. Have a good life with that, I'm going to do bad because I don't want to be bad. A lot of people do that. Like, oh no, I don't want to be bad. But I'm going to do a lot of bad. And that's the created relationship right there. Woohoo! I don't want to do bad though, but I don't want to do bad because I'm going to do bad because I don't want to be bad. That's the most confusing statement ever, but it's true. Sadly, it's one of the truest statements because people all the time create this. They create this kind of psychological sonic mind where they have to do bad because they don't want to be bad. So they say that they're not doing something bad when they are, because they have to stop doing bad. And that's the same thing like with corporations and banks, for example. But when these things happen, they don't necessarily help us. And I think that's what it comes down to. Like with corporations and banks, the government is all using those titles across to not be responsible for it. So they give a title like, Enron or any corporation's name you could think of. They have those names there so they don't have to take the blame for anything. Tyranny helps in small government. It leads to all things, Anarchy shows that nothing is large scale. Wars have an advantage in life that leads to real freedom. But they don't have an advantage if violence is perceptibly created by one side. But hand in every pot, Violent political power structure. That's what you got. Every law is a gun, though. Every law is a threat. The more guns in laws, rules, and regulations than in people's hands. So, if they were, to ban guns or something, then all you got is the people who created the laws and rules and regulations or agree with them that hold the guns. They're outlaws. They're not listening to the law, actually. The law is no guns. So I've created it. My pattern of thought is if you're a coward, you're going to agree with it. You're going to skewer in it and live in it. And you're going to agree with every single compliance and fight that you need to. Just to call someone else a coward. So every law is that. So that you can't live, so you can live a little perceptively freer than somebody who isn't. Because that's mostly the ideas of what freedom is to a lot of people. Freedom is taking away the rights from other people so that you have more rights. I feel like I have freedom because they don't. That's how you know. You have to acknowledge it somehow. So take away someone else's freedom so you feel freer. Definition done. Heart compliance complete. Coward and love. Take care.